You've heard the critics say it doesn't work, seen the skeptics call it a pseudoscience, and you're not sure what to think about NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. Well, you're in for a real treat, because today I'm setting the record straight. I'm an NLP teacher with over a decade of experience, and I've witnessed the power of how NLP can transform lives. But one video is spreading misinformation that I can't ignore. In the next few minutes, I'm not just firing back, I'm lighting up the whole debate. So if you're ready for the truth about NLP, let's do this. Danielle Ryan is a YouTube content creator and entrepreneur who makes videos about business scams, especially in the personal development industry. According to her, she herself fell prey to a costly coaching program and now has made it her mission to go after them. Can we kill that music? It's a little too serious and the buildup isn't necessary. Her mission is commendable. There are a lot of scam artists out there looking to screw vulnerable people out of every penny they have, which gives legitimate personal development businesses a bad name. But she made a big mistake when she swerved into my lane and got more wrong about NLP than she got right, which I will expose in this video. And to be fair, okay, stop the music again. I will credit her for what she gets right. Not only that, she actually does make some good points about the problematic state of NLP today, which I will highlight. We're also going to play her video in its entirety so no one can accuse me of taking her words out of context. Before we get started, I should also mention that I did reach out to Danielle before making this video, and she did respond. I'll share her surprising response a little bit later. And one last thing before we start. You might be thinking, Damon, why are you doing this? You have a much bigger channel than she has. Aren't you punching down? Maybe. I'll address this later on, and you can decide. Okay, let's see what Danielle has to say.
So what exactly is NLP? NLP, or Neuro Linguistic Programming, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Back in the day when I thought I was a life coach and I was really doing something with my life, I became certified in NLP and I would use NLP with my clients. Maybe you're watching this.
Okay, I seriously doubt she was actually using NLP, because I seriously doubt she learned NLP, and I'm basing that on having already seen this video. She might have had a certification, and as we go forward, as she will say, she will talk about the dubiousness of NLP certifications, which I actually agree with.
This video, maybe you practice NLP. Love that for you, hate it for me, and that's why we're going to be here
Definitely love that for me.
to talk about it today. What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. Hi if you're new here, hi if you are not. My name's Danielle. Not only do I create small business content here on my YouTube channel, I also like to unearth scams, particularly in the life coaching and business coaching industry. If you find yourself being someone that is particularly triggered by the content that I create on my channel, I would advise you, for your own mental health and well-being, to click out of this video. Give it a thumbs down on your way out if you feel like it. But if you...
I guess I got triggered by her content. But instead of just jumping off and not watching, of course, I'm doing this.
enjoy this kind of content, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I am so happy to have you here. Let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Okay, so by now you might be wondering, what exactly is NLP? NLP, or Neuro Linguistic Programming, is an approach to communication, psychotherapy, and personal development that first appeared in Richard Bandler and John Grinder's 1970.
Okay. John Grinder, not John Grinder. This might seem trivial that she mispronounced one of the founders' names, but if you connect the dots on all these things that she gets wrong about NLP, you begin to see this is not someone who has really understood what NLP is before she actually made this video.
75 book called The Structure of Magic Part 1. Despite a lack of empirical evidence to support it, the authors then released a second book called The Structure of Magic Part 2, and
Okay, so she says it lacked empirical evidence, and this is going to be a theme throughout this video, and I'm going to start off just talking about it a little bit now, and I'll talk more about it later. Every time somebody wants to say something against NLP or is skeptical of NLP, the first thing they will say is that it's not backed by science, or it's not backed by empirical data. And this only happens with NLP. Like, I can think of so many other things that, and she's going to mention something later. I'm going to wait till she mentions it. But how many things do we do and that we practice that is not backed by empirical data? Like 99% of what Danielle does every single day, I am sure, is not backed by empirical data. When you talk about SMART goals, everybody knows what SMART goals are, right? Not backed by empirical data. Law of attraction, definitely not backed by empirical data. The Secret, affirmations, meditation to some extent, active listening, visualization, yoga, jogging, surfing. Can you imagine anytime you mention anything you do that you enjoy, that you definitely get something out of, somebody turns around and says, well, that's not empirically backed by data? Be like, so why is this always brought up when somebody mentions NLP? I don't believe in affirmations. I don't think that they work. I don't believe in vision boards. I don't think that they work. But I have never heard anyone say, hey, I practice affirmations, and someone say, that's not backed by empirical data. Or I use vision boards. I've never heard someone respond, well, that's not backed by empirical data. Why does NLP need to be backed by empirical data and nothing else needs to be backed by empirical data?
NLP kind of took off from there. The practice centers on this assumption that there is a connection between neurological processes, language, and acquired behavioral patterns, and that any of these processes can then be changed in order to help you achieve specific goals in your life. NLP uses perceptual, behavioral, and communicative techniques to make it easier for people to change their thoughts, behaviors, and actions. Essentially, in my opinion, it's just a bunch of falsely certified practitioners, as they like to call themselves, and I say falsely certified.
She had a very general definition. It is hard to define what NLP is. I've done a few videos on that. And then she jumps to, well, to me, it's just this. Okay, obviously from your experience, and she'll talk more about her experience, she got what she got out of it because she ran into the problem that she describes later. But she, instead of just attributing it to not very good research on her part before she went and spent a bunch of money with someone calling themselves a certified NLP coach, she just says, well, this is how all NLP is. And it's not. This is not how NLP works. The certification in NLP is separate from NLP itself.
And because just like life coaching, literally anyone can start a school of NLP and start certifying people as practitioners in the industry. Basically.
And she's right about this. And this is the part that I like about what she has said in this video. I've done videos about the nonsense of this certifications, NLP certifications, since before she was making content on YouTube. So I am an NLP practitioner, an NLP teacher, and I talk about how the dubiousness of NLP certifications, because she's right. She's going to talk about like, you can go do a 1 day or a 2 day and then you're certified. And I agree, there is no way you're going to know NLP after 1 or 2 days of training. That just does not work that way.
It's just a giant unregulated industry where people are teaching other people techniques that are not rooted in science. The whole thing kind of...
Okay, again, the first part, great. Yes, this is just a bunch of people thinking that they have some sort of skill or knowledge that they don't have and teaching each other. And I've seen this. I would say the majority of NLP teachers out there do not even know what real NLP is. But then she goes, it's not backed by science. Okay. All right. Danielle, if you were to write down everything you do every day, what you do every single day is backed by science? And you can say, well, that's not the same thing. Yes, it is, because every single day you do stuff to get a result. You're hungry, you go eat food. You eat the food that you like. Not backed by science, right? Not everybody likes the same food that you do. Not backed by science. You go walk your dog because your dog wants to get out and stretch its legs. What's backed by science about that? The English language. Not backed by science. She's making it sound like we can't do anything unless it's backed by science. But pretty much everything, almost everything that exists, except for maybe the past 100 years, was not backed by science. The English language itself, was not generated from science. We just started using it and it worked and we can communicate with each other and it continues to evolve. Not backed by science. Language has never been proven by science. The English language has never been proven by science, but yet you're using it and you're communicating and people can understand what you're saying. So the way she makes it sound is like, if it's not generated or backed by science, don't touch it. Don't do anything with it. It's not real. It doesn't work. There's so many things in life that works before science was ever created. Science as we know it, modern science.
And gives me manifestation vibes. So if you haven't watched my video on why I personally don't believe manifestation is real, you can go ahead and click right here too.
Okay, the manifestation video she's talking about, I have not seen, but I would probably agree with her on all of those things because I don't believe in that as well. The type of manifestation, the kind of woo-woo stuff. And it goes against what actually NLP is. So she's going to, for the rest of this video, keep conflating those two. They're not the same thing.
To watch that and get caught speed and then come back and join us. Essentially, practitioners of NLP say that they can use the methods of NLP to essentially model the behaviors of exceptional people, meaning that anyone who desires to act the way someone else is acting can essentially just use NLP to embody that person's thoughts and behaviors. And
No. Okay, first part again was right. How do we get good at anything? By modeling the behavior of people who are good at something. You don't need NLP to do that. NLP has some tools that will help you do that much, much better and much, much faster. But embody the thoughts of other people, you'd have to show me where in NLP, any authority on NLP, any NLP book written by an NLP authority said that we can embody the thoughts of other people. That is not true. I don't know where you got that, but you're wrong.
I don't know. The whole thing just gives me like a weird feeling, okay?
Yeah, I would bet if you're talking about psychic abilities, and NLP doesn't have anything to do with creating the ability to be psychic.
Some critics suggest that the reason why NLP is so popular is because it has such a broad application to such a large number of problems and desires that people want to have in their life. And it really
yeah, exactly.
interesting piece I came across in my research is that many of these NLP practitioners don't believe that it's necessary for them to understand their client's history in order to help them achieve their goals and desires that they're looking for assistance with. And I found this particularly interesting because if we think about any other kind of medical or psychological setting.
Okay, so here again, she goes, NLP practitioners don't believe that we need to know a lot about a person's history to help them with their goals. And then she shifts to psychology. NLP is not a psychology. It's not a therapy. It's not a science. She's going to talk later about it being a pseudoscience. I think you kind of have to be making claims that, something is a science before someone else can come around and say it's a pseudoscience. But here she goes again, like, yeah, you don't need to know a lot about a person's history most of the time to help them with their desires and their goals. The first part of what she said. And then later she goes into psychology. Well, yeah, I think psychology, you do need to know a little bit more about a person's history. But I'm a coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. Somebody comes to me, I do charge a good bit of money. So I want to help that person as fast as possible to get them where they want to be. And most of the time, when people start telling you their stories and they give you their whole narrative, like, it's not needed. And what NLP does is we go to structure. And if I can lock onto the structure of how you're creating your beliefs, changing the structure is more powerful than trying to change the content. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. If someone's depressed, if I'm using content, meaning I elicit their history and know more about them being depressed, and then I just say, okay, well, all you need to do is just be happy. That's me trying to use content against their content. That's not going to work. However, if I know how they're structuring their thoughts and their beliefs, then we can play around with changing the structure, which is not content banging up against content. When it comes to not pathology, not mental pathology, but someone wanting to achieve something or even just solve a problem, I don't want to know their history because that usually slows us down. The only time I want to know history of this person is when it's actually necessary. Maybe there is something in their past that they're locked onto, that their unconscious hasn't let go of. Okay, then we need to go in there and see what's going on. And there's actually a process in NLP called change personal history. So Danielle, you're wrong again. We have tools and techniques in NLP that deal with a person's history. But if we can get away with not having to get bogged down in content and details in the person's story, yeah, we want to avoid that because then we can move much faster. How you structure your thoughts has a lot more to do with how you feel about them than the content itself. So for example, if you see a sad picture in your mind and it makes you feel sad when you see it, whatever the content is, but if you were to make that picture black and white and smaller, you would feel the effects of sadness start to go down. So the content is the same, but the structure changes. Another example, you have horror movies like the movie The Shining. And what they do, and I love this, editors will re-edit movies like The Shining to make it look like a comedy. They didn't go get Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall and that little boy and reshoot the content. They just re-edit it, structure. And when you watch it, when it's re-edited, it's now funny rather than scary. Structure. In NLP, we focus on structure. And if we can avoid content, we will, because we can move faster when we avoid content. That doesn't mean we can always avoid content. Sometimes we need to go into content. And if you're a psychologist or you're a therapist, that means you're already certified and trained in different modalities where you know how to navigate people's history. And if you combine that with NLP, it'll make you a better therapist. But I have never heard anyone say that NLP should replace therapy. They can coexist.
It is considered best practice and often is completely necessary to understand a client's history when it comes to resolving whatever issues they're facing in present day. And
If you're going to a therapist and you have a pathology, I agree.
In my opinion, I think that this not only demonstrates how unregulated the industry and how unknowing many of these practitioners truly are, but further also demonstrates the dangers that someone who is in a really vulnerable position seeking help from an NLP practitioner could be susceptible to facing. However,
I guess we're all vulnerable, and this could apply to anything. Why specifically NLP?
fortunately, as a result of NLP being an applicable tool that can be used for so many different people and so many different problems, it's been adopted by so many different hypnotherapists, coaches, and people of the like as a tool to help their clients achieve their dreams and desires.
Exactly. Yes. Does that delegitimize it, or does that give it more legitimacy? I have therapists, certified therapists, who take my trainings. They're not complaining about any of the things that you're complaining about. They use it to be better therapists. I have day traders who come to me for training to make themselves better day traders. I have all sorts of business people and even content creators because they want to be better at what they do. And NLP helps them do that.
In summary, NLP is used as a method of personal development through promoting skills such as self-reflection, self-confidence, and communication.
Self-reflection, that involves history. The coach doesn't deal with history, but part of NLP is self-reflection. How do those two work together?
Which, for the record, in themselves are not problematic. In fact, it's my personal opinion that all of these are great skills to have. The issue I have is when we are charging people thousands of dollars to learn those skills. Again,
okay, that's not up to NLP, or that's not an NLP thing. That's a industry thing, a personal development thing. Isn't it okay to trust that people know what they're paying for and they know if it's worth it to them, or they should do their own research? This isn't about NLP, what you're talking about now, because this is in any industry where people might overcharge, or people are not really qualified to be teaching what they're teaching and they're overcharging for it and people are paying for it. What does this have to do with NLP? Sure, NLP people do it, but they're not the only ones. I see people, law of attraction teachers, charging $10,000. Has nothing to do with NLP. It's law of attraction, which, I mean, if you think NLP doesn't have any basis in science or evidence, law of attraction or, The Secret or anything like that, and these people charge astronomical amounts. Well, I mean, I don't know what the point is here. Like, people are going to charge what they charge. There are some NLP teachers and practitioners who charge very little, and there's some that charge very much. You just have to leave it up to the consumer, I think.
And just like many of the grifts and schemes that I cover here on my channel, while I do have problems with underqualified people teaching things that they have no right to be teaching, that in itself could be an entire video for
no right to be teaching. Even though I think that there's a lot of NLP teachers who call themselves NLP teachers and they don't know what they're teaching. When you get into the right to teach, do you really want someone saying that and saying you have the right to teach this or not? With something like this, you kind of have to just leave it up to the person, the consumer, to do their own research. If the person is charging money and they're not showing up to do the coaching sessions, or they're not showing up to teach the class, then yes, this is an actual scam. They're promising something and not delivering anything. When it comes to the exact results delivered in personal development, you can't really guarantee that. And a lot of it is up to the practitioner or the person who's learning something or the person who's being coached. This is a really hard one to say it's right or wrong, or, have some sort of way to regulate this.
For another day. My real issue here with NLP is the exploitation piece, wherein these practitioners are charging their clients thousands and thousands of dollars either to learn how to use the NLP techniques in their own life, or to train them to then become NLP practitioners themselves. The whole thing just gives me a major, major ick. Now, without getting too deep into this, because honestly, I think this topic could be an entire video in itself. In fact, you can let me...
Yeah, I mean, Danielle, you're really talking about something else that goes across industries and is not specific to NLP. Yes, it occurs with people who call themselves NLP teachers and coaches, but it's not like, this is a part of NLP. Certifications in NLP are pretty much bogus. You have to really look at the institute. And the truth is that I never put much emphasis on certification for myself when I was training, because I just knew from the first training I did, all you had to do was show up and you get a certification. And in some cases, some trainings I've done, you don't even need to show up. They'll just hand it out to you. You could have been absent the entire time. They're not taking roll. So I agree with you. People go, they get certified because that's what they want. They're buying a certification, and I don't like this part of it. And when people come to me for training, I have to tell them this, that The certification is nothing. Your certification is your ability. Your certification is your knowledge, okay? A piece of paper means nothing, but that's what people want to buy. People like the feeling that they're buying something off the shelf and they're taking it home and it means something. That's just how it is. I don't like it. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's what people are focused on and that's what people want to buy. And yes, they turn these people out. They go, oh, okay, you got a practitioner certification. Now you got a master practitioner certification. Now you have a trainer certification. And then you go off teaching people. And yes, these people don't really know NLP. I've taught what was supposed to be like advanced trainings, and advanced NLP students showed up and they had master practitioner and beyond, and they didn't even know the basics. I had to go back and reteach the basics to them because they didn't know what I was talking about. It's unfortunate, but I don't know what else. I don't know how to change that about the NLP industry.
If you want me to make an entire video about this, I want to talk about these not so legit NLP certification programs. In fact, a quick Google search that I did for this video came up with hundreds of results. And if we go to a website like Udemy, for example, you'll see on the screen here, there are hundreds of options for courses that range anywhere from the like $20 to $30 mark to certify you in NLP. And then beyond Udemy, we have these like full-on academies where you can take intensive courses in multiple parts that cost upwards of $4,500 Canadian after the exchange rate. Now, honestly, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video—
I agree with you. You're talking about my competitors. And yes, it's very annoying that I have to compete with people who don't actually know what NLP is, and they're charging these astronomical prices and they're bumping up against what I do. And they give people like me a bad name. They pay all this money and then they realize the person doesn't really know anything. But most of the time, people are perfectly okay to go along with the illusion that they're NLP certified. And when people say, oh, I have a master practitioner in NLP, it doesn't faze me in the least because it doesn't tell me anything about what they know.
Video was because there was one creator in particular who, to this day, I still receive her ads, but I'm pretty sure she was the one that kind of turned me on to the world of NLP and sort of introduced me to what it even was. And now I won't name her specific business, but I will say that she is Toronto-based. She has established her own unique method in which she then certifies people as mindset coaches who can then use the techniques of NLP. So
she's talking about someone who is certifying people as a mindset coach, not necessarily NLP. I wish she would have said the person's name. I would have looked and to find her and to see who her teachers were and all that. What she probably did was she probably took an NLP course or two, got a certification, which means nothing, and she just includes that in her marketing and personal development. People see NLP, the word, the acronym, they know that Tony Robbins does this, they know that there's something there. And so a lot of times people will include this in their marketing, but it's a certification in being a mindset coach. And there's nothing here that she's showing that says anything to do with NLP.
See on the screen here, a screenshot from her Instagram that shows the like mindset coach certification that you'll receive. And the piece about this that I find really sad is that she charges thousands of dollars to the students of her program. And she frames it as this like legitimate opportunity because she uses words like get your certification and graduate from the program. But my friend, if you are looking for a degree in a particular topic, please do yourself a favor and go to an accredited actual institution and don't—
An accredited actual institution in coaching. Let's think about that for a second. She's recommending that people, instead of going to an NLP certification, go to an actual accredited coaching institute and get a certification there. So let me ask you, Danielle, name one of these accredited coaching institutes that uses a method that is empirically backed by scientific data. I would love to see that. I've never seen that before. She puts NLP up against science, and it's not backed by empirical data. And then at the same time, she's saying instead of doing an NLP course, go to an actual accredited coaching institute, of which I have never heard of one, and I've looked, being backed by science. Name one coaching institute or coaching models that are being used that are backed by empirical scientific data. I would love to see that.
Don't spend thousands of dollars getting a certificate from some random stranger on the internet, no matter how many followers they have, and no matter how legitimate they appear on the surface. So now let's really get into why I believe the entire concept of NLP is kind of a giant hoax. First of all, like many of the other schemes and grifts that I cover here on my channel, there is no scientific evidence to support the claim.
Here we go with the scientific evidence. Let me read my list of things that are not backed by science. Danielle, your morning routine, not backed by science. Successful business models, which you sell something. I know you're selling something. I don't know what it is, but it has something to do with business. I've used lots of business models. I've studied many business models. I don't think there's a single business model that I've ever studied or implemented that was backed by science. You take a model, it worked for someone, or a bunch of people, and you try it for yourself, and it either works or it doesn't. I've never used a model that didn't work and said, gee, that must have been because it wasn't backed by science. Business models are not typically backed by science. They work for some people who can make them work, and for other people, they don't work. As I mentioned before, the English language, never been backed by science, never, but it gets a result. And that's the whole point of NLP. NLP is about getting a result. It's not about locking on to a certain set way, a certain technique, and saying, this is it, we found it, it works, this is objectively true. Science and NLP are two different things. I love science. I'm not in any way bashing science. Science is awesome. It has given us so much, especially in the last 100 years. But if you think about it, the innovations we have made were not necessarily because of science, it's because people were out there trying stuff that had not been proven by science. Science comes along later and says, okay, well, let's look at why this is working. And what science is trying to do, what the objective of science is to find objective truth, to find something that is observably true. And this is wonderful. Like, I'm very happy that we have something like this, but that's not the objective of NLP. NLP is studying what subjectivity is, because we know, science knows even, what humbles science is that we can never 100% know objective truth. Why is that? Because it's always passing through our subjectivity. And so the founders of NLP said, well, why don't we study that? Why don't we look at how our subjectivity creates our reality? Maybe there's a structure there. And yes, there is very much a structure there. NLP is not looking for objective truth. It's looking to study the structure of subjectivity, of experience. An example of that, placebo. Well, you have to include placebo in scientific experiments. Why? Let's say you do a double-blind study on a particular medication, and the placebo is something that is, not a real medication. It's usually like sugar pills or something like that. But what we do know, we need to put that placebo factor in there, because people will take a pill that has no medicine in it whatsoever, has no active ingredient in it whatsoever, and just because they believe they're taking a pill, they might get better or something in their body changes. So what is going on there? How can your mind affect something like that? That's what NLP seeks to find out. If you can do that with just your mind, well, let's figure out the structures and the patterns behind that so that we can use our mind to do those sort of extraordinary things. And that is part of science. Science had to say, yeah, we got to include this subjectivity thing because it's happening. People, just because they believe they're taking a medicine or some active ingredient, it's actually changing how they feel, what they think, and actually can change you physiologically. So that's what NLP is after. Danielle, your video is not backed by empirical scientific data. So should we not watch your videos? Yoga is not backed by empirical data. Can you imagine, like, somebody says, oh, I just had a wonderful yoga practice. Danielle, and you would say, oh, but that's, yoga's not backed by empirical data. And the person's like, well, I enjoy it. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel flexible. And you go, no, until it's backed by empirical data, I think it's a scam. Take meditation. People have meditated for thousands of years because they obviously knew it did something good for them. And it hasn't been until just recently that science has started to study meditation and realize there's something here. And can you imagine, like, how you could just have killed that thousands of years ago if we were using science and people like you were saying, oh, well, that's not backed by science, so you shouldn't do it. It's a scam. Wait till science can prove it, and then you can go and meditate. Look, if it works for you, if it gets you results, what's wrong with it? What's the problem?
Claims that many NLP advocates are making. But before we get too far into the conversation about the flaws that I personally see with the NLP industry, I thought we could take a moment to collectively enjoy this TikTok that I came across by a consumer behavior psychologist who goes by the name of Dr. Paul. I will link his profile and information in the description of this video.
So today's question is, can you explain what NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, is? How do I put this as diplomatically as humanly possible? Because I know that many of you out there probably believe this crap. NLP is a string of words that mean nothing, made up by two men in the 70s from nothing. It has no basis in anything, let alone science. So NLP is basically rubbish. But it makes a lot of people a lot of money. And, you have NLP practitioners and NLP master practitioners and all sorts of stuff. But the truth of the matter is, Anybody can call themselves an NLP master practitioner because you can make it up as you go along, because it's not real. It's nonsense. It's crap. Rubbish. Now, I can say that in 22 different languages. But in plain English, NLP is complete and utter nonsense.
Ultimately,
I don't know how to say this to you, Dr. Paul, in a diplomatic way, but you are a smug little turd. Sorry, couldn't help myself. That's the first thing I thought when I saw this guy. The first time I saw that video was not on Danielle's video here. I saw it somewhere else. I reached out to him, and there's a place where it says you can send him questions. So I sent him a question, and I offered to debate him on the merits of NLP. And that was weeks ago, and he has not gotten back to me. So I don't think he wants to debate me, because we're not talking necessarily about the same thing. If he's going to crap on something, you should actually know what you're talking about before you crap on it. NLP is not really psychology, and it's not really therapy. It can be used in psychology and therapy. So Dr. Paul, if you're watching this, I'm putting it out there again, and you want to debate the merits of NLP, let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it live.
NLP is a pseudoscience in that it uses a lot of uselessly complicated scientific sounding terms.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. To call it a pseudoscience, I would think that you would have to be trying to pass NLP off as a science. And I don't know anyone who's doing that. I'm not saying no one in the world has ever done that. People can say whatever they want. But true NLP practitioners, the founders of NLP, do not call it a science. In fact, there was an interview with Richard Bandler, one of the founders of NLP. Ross Jeffries interviewed him, also known as Paul Ross. And Bandler specifically says NLP is not a science, it is a model, okay? And it does not use science or scientific terminology. John Grinder is a PhD in linguistics, and he got his PhD in linguistics before he created NLP. And so they used Noam Chomsky's transformational grammar. They use a lot of terminology from that to code NLP. And they also used a lot of computer software programming type words, because at the time they were creating NLP about 35 miles distance from Silicon Valley. And so they were using also computer language, which is not really science-based. I mean, you could call it computer science. And linguistic terminology, it may be somewhat scientific, but it's not the kind of scientific terminology that you're talking about. So no, it does not. If you know NLP, you've studied NLP, you've practiced it, there's not a lot of scientific jargon in it. I mean, maybe a teacher mentions something in science from time to time, which you can do in any industry. If you're giving a lecture, you might mention gravity, and people go, "Oh, now you're talking pseudoscience because you're not actually talking science, but did you use a scientific word like gravity?" Like, like how far do you want to go with this? NLP terminology is not science terminology. It's not trying to pass itself off as a science.
To disguise the naive simplicity of it all. Just like I outlined in my video here about quantum mechanics and spirituality, what we see is the use of words and terminology that sound scientific as an effort or in an effort to make whatever these people are sharing sound like it is legitimate scientific information.
And she's right about that for a lot of things out there in personal development. I see them use science-based words all the time. And that's not NLP. That's not what we do.
If it sounds scientific, it must be scientific, right? Wrong. In the reading that I did, some critics went so far as to claim it to be pseudo-religious and pseudo-philosophical as well. In that, once you sort of find your way into the sort of practice of NLP, it can be really difficult to find your way out of it. Because...
How so? I'm stopping it here because she does not explain how that works exactly. Because how do you find your way out of it?
Every challenging or negative thought that you have in the practice of NLP is then rooted back to the grander NLP worldview that you've adopted. And
according to who? I gotta honestly say I'm lost, because I know what you're saying, Danielle, but I'm trying to apply that to NLP as I know it, and none of that is lining up.
There's no method within NLP itself that would allow you to criticize the practice of NLP.
According to who? NLP practitioners, real ones, debate NLP techniques and practices a lot. Like my mentor, Steve Andreas, used to debate with other NLP teachers quite a bit.
Or is there a way to sort of measure the practices within NLP against one another? The methods and the teachings are the way they are, and if the methods don't work, then it's the fault of the practitioner, not the method itself. And NLP...
According to who? Who's saying this? I don't know anyone who's saying that. I've had many NLP teachers. I've had a mentor for years before he passed away. And none of them ever said, oh, you're not making it work, it's your fault. Where's this coming from?
NLP advocates and practitioners will often dismiss criticisms by simply just saying that NLP works, but when pushed for evidence on how it works, their evidence is often anecdotal at best. Are we surprised?
Ask me a question, Danielle, about that, like something more specific, like it works. Yes, it works. I could tell you, I was depressed, and my professor, who was a professor at the University of New Orleans, who is certified in multiple therapies, favored NLP. And after I graduated college and I had no health insurance, and I fell into a depression, I reached out to him because I couldn't afford a therapist. And in 1 hour, a 1 hour session, I left and I was not depressed anymore. Years later, I fell into depression again, about a decade later. Went to a traditional psychotherapist. Traditional, very traditional. It took me a year to come out of it. And after that, I realized I needed to take control of my own mental health and nurture it. And that's when I decided to start learning NLP. Have not been depressed since, and I attribute that to my knowledge in NLP and my practice of NLP.
Surprised because I'm not. Now, determining the effectiveness of NLP is difficult for a few different reasons. NLP has never been subject to the scientific rigor that many other established therapies or modalities like CBT.
Okay, name one thing that you practice in personal development, Danielle, that has gone through the rigorous testing of scientific testing. There's so many things that you do, but I guarantee you 99% of them at least are not backed by science. But when it comes to NLP, you want the scientific backing.
Cognitive behavioral therapy have been. And its overall lack of formal regulation really leaves for some questionable results because a lot of the evidence to prove that it's effective comes from anecdotal experience or the NLP practitioners themselves. And I think it's really important to note that any NLP practitioner is, for lack of a better term, completely financially motivated, because if I'm an NLP...
No, that's not true. Okay, there are so many people who practice NLP who do not teach NLP and do not coach NLP. They only use NLP to help themselves. And that is where I started with NLP. I had no intention whatsoever of becoming a coach or a teacher. I was just trying to fix my marriage and my insurance business. And as I was using NLP and it was really working in my life, I learned it very well, and I could realize I could also teach it and I could also coach people. So no, this is not true. There are plenty of people who practice NLP who are not financially motivated by teaching NLP or coaching NLP.
Practitioner, I want you to buy my services. Obviously, I'm going to tell you that the services I'm trying to sell you are effective in helping you achieve whatever your goals are. And beyond that, quite frankly...
And I can provide many testimonials of people who have worked with me or learned from me who are not financially motivated by teaching NLP. They have completely different careers, and they will attest to the results that I helped them get or results from learning what I taught. And they're not in NLP. They're not coaches. They're not teachers.
Any of the scientific research that's been done has a lot of mixed results. And so I've included a couple of peer-reviewed articles in the description for this video, but if you take a read through those, you'll find out that in some circumstances, there is a little bit of evidence to suggest that the methods of NLP are effective. And then in others, the results are saying that it's completely ineffective. So it's really non-conclusive.
She's right about this. I'm glad that she took this step, and she does include 4 studies, 2 that say can really verify the results of NLP, and 2 studies that said, yeah, looks like NLP worked pretty well here. This is true, and I commend you, Danielle, for actually finding studies and including them.
And generally speaking, the theoretical basis for NLP to this day has attracted a lot of criticism for its lack of evidence-based results. And despite...
Okay, there we are again. I mean, I think hopefully I've beaten this into the ground. My friend James Tripp made a great analogy, and this is the best way that I can explain this. If you watch people play chess, all right, and chess, again, it's one of those things. Are certain chess moves better than other chess moves? Well, it kind of depends. So are certain styles better than others? It kind of depends. It depends on the practitioner, depends on the game you're playing, depends on the opponent. And this is very much applicable to NLP. So much more has to do with the NLP practitioner's ability and their knowledge and their flexibility to move from one technique and process to the next. It's not like you can isolate a particular move in chess and say, oh, we've scientifically verified that this move works. Or like if you tried to isolate in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu an armbar, well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you isolate it, and which is what we try to do in science, we try to isolate something to see what is objectively true, like what stimulus creates what response. Well, an armbar is going to work sometimes when the opportunity is there to grab an armbar and if the opponent can't defend against it. There's so many moving pieces to this. There's so many factors to it. So to get back to what James Tripp says about NLP, if you were to watch a chess player practice moves, they will practice the moves of a chess player, like famous chess players. Like they have books about this stuff. And this goes back to like NLP. You want to model someone who does something very, very well. So if you were to watch a chess player practice chess moves from games that were already played by famous chess players, and you look at that and you go, oh, well, chess is the moves that person is practicing. And then you'd have to correct that person and say, well, no, that's not what chess is. Yes, it's part of chess. These moves are part of chess, but chess is a game, right? It's not the moves that this person is practicing. But that's what people do with NLP. They go, oh, well, the techniques must be what NLP is. And it's like, no, it's not. It really isn't. And you can't, and sometimes those techniques are going to work and sometimes they're not. And there's so many factors that are dependent on that. The ability of the practitioner, the right technique at the right time, and the responsiveness or receptiveness of the person who you're using the technique with.
Nearly 4 decades of existence, neither the effectiveness or validity of NLP has been clearly demonstrated through solid research. Okay, I think now it would be most helpful to share what some of these NLP gurus online are saying so that you can kind of understand what it looks like, and hopefully it will help you to avoid becoming subject or victim to any of these ploys.
Danielle, you're going to get what you want to find, okay? If you're looking to TikTok to prove your point about NLP, okay. I mean, if you were honestly looking for authorities in NLP to say true things about NLP so you could get a real grasp of what NLP is, TikTok, really? You're going to look at TikTok. You're going to go to TikTok to find this. You might be able to find some legitimate NLP practitioners on TikTok because we're all trying to, get our stuff out there, even you. You will find more legitimate people on YouTube. But in general, you could have looked this stuff up. You could have gone to the authorities in NLP, some of the early developers, even the founders. You could have read some of the books that these people have written, like books written by my mentor, Steve Andreas, or his wife, Connie Ray Andreas, or the books that they wrote together. Why did you go to TikTok? I can only imagine you went to TikTok because you were looking for people to prove your point, rather than legitimately looking to find, well, what is this NLP thing?
Again, everything I share here is in my experience based on my own opinion and my own understanding. So let's go ahead and jump into the first video.
I love NLP so much, and I'm going to tell you what it is and how you can use it to help yourself. So NLP is...
By the way, I think it's interesting that she blurred their faces. Why would you blur their faces? I mean, they're putting their stuff out in public for people to see. I think they're okay with people seeing their faces.
It's just how your mind sees and hears and feels and then produces a response based off those things. It's essentially the operating system of your mind. You take in information with your 5 senses, your mind filters it, labels it, and then creates a program. And you're constantly running these programs which shape your experience of the world. But many people
so far, so good.
don't know that you can rewrite your programs at any time thanks to neuroplasticity.
Okay, just like...
No. Okay, I'm going to let Danielle talk here, but that is not NLP.
I mentioned earlier in this video, and like I mentioned in the quantum mechanics video, which I will have linked down below, people will use scientific terms, neuroplasticity, for example, to make whatever the explanation or teaching is that they're trying to get to come across sound more scientific than it actually is.
Okay, that's with anything. Anybody can do that in anything, anywhere. That has nothing to do with NLP. I have never, ever learned about neuroplasticity in an NLP training. The only places I've ever heard that in personal development were Law of Attraction, The Secret, and those types of things. Now, I'm not saying that NLP, so-called NLP teachers, people who say that they know NLP, will use those types of things. They might, but they're already using a lot of other stuff. They'll go to an NLP training, they'll go to these other trainings, and they just kind of all mix and mash it up together and say, this is NLP neuroplasticity, whatever. Okay, these are not real NLP people. These are not real NLP practitioners. Again, if you look at what has been taught since the beginning of NLP, from the people who created it and the developers and legitimate NLP teachers, they don't say anything about neuroplasticity other than maybe, yes, this could affect something like that, but it's not an NLP teaching.
and without really knowing what exactly it is that they're talking about. Now, I'm not arguing that neuroplasticity isn't a thing. It definitely is. In fact, neuroplasticity is the ability of neural networks in the brain to change through growth and reorganization. Essentially, it is when the brain is rewired to function in some way that differs from how it previously functioned. However, I have a hard time believing that someone who took a maybe 2-day, 1-week, 8-hour course on NLP is going to have the skills, the understanding, and the wherewithal to actually implement techniques for neuroplasticity into their day-to-day life. But
Completely agree. Completely agree.
let's go ahead and see what else she has to say.
Using NLP to rewrite is the best in my opinion. 1, because I've seen personal incredible results from it. 2, it works super fast. And 3, it is very effective. And there are many NLP techniques, but one that you can try right now is take any limiting belief that you have, close your eyes, and then hear it playing in your head. And imagine that you have
Okay, I gotta say this first. This is not an NLP technique. It's not.
2 dials in front of you. And the first dial turns down the volume on this limiting belief. So just go ahead and at your own pace in your own time, turn down that dial all the way until it gets to 0. Once you've got it down to 0 and you don't hear it anymore, turn your attention to the other dial and begin to turn it up. And as you do that, you notice that it's playing your favorite song. Crank up the volume as loud as you want. You can even sing or dance. And then once you're feeling really good, go ahead and hug yourself. Now, if you were able to do that successfully,
Yeah, your favorite song and hug yourself.
congratulations, you've just rewritten that program.
No, you did not. No, you cannot rewrite a program from within, especially one around a belief, by doing what that woman just said. She is taking some elements of NLP and just kind of making stuff up, or somebody else did that and she's just repeating it.
And I have no problem with visualization techniques. I've talked pretty openly in my other videos about how I am someone who uses a journal every day. I write down the thing
Danielle, but journals are not empirically backed by scientific data. Why would you do that? It's a scam.
that I want to achieve and the things that I aspire to create. And I think that the practice of goal setting can be really instrumental
Goal setting that has never been proven scientifically.
in allowing us to be able to achieve the things that we want and we desire in our lifetime. The thing I take issue with, and again, we see this across all of these sort of scientific, spiritual, grifting spaces, is the use of seemingly scientific verbiage, terms, and practices, and then tying them to what are, in my opinion, very rudimentary exercises.
Okay, other than when that woman mentioned plasticity, neuroplasticity, I don't think she used any other scientific jargon that I can recall.
So the whole thing just kind of seems like a little bit unnecessary to me. Now let's get
Not that I'm defending her, by the way. That technique or process that she mentioned was not an NLP.
into the next video.
If you are somebody who struggles with confidence or you don't even know what confidence looks like to you, listen up and don't scroll, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to teach you how to increase your confidence using a technique I created called the circle of belief. What you're going to go ahead and do is find a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what piece of paper you have. And what I want you to do is you're going to go ahead and draw a circle. I want you to close your eyes, take a nice deep breath, and I want you to ask yourself, how many levels of confidence do you need to travel through in order to become your most confident self, right? The center of the circle is your least confident self. The outer ring of the circle is your most confident self. So go ahead, think of that number, sit down, and draw that many circles. In this example, I drew 5. Now take a deep breath, close your eyes, and I want you to imagine where you are in your circles, right? If you were going to rate your level of confidence, where would you put yourself? Some of you might go in the middle, some of you might be one of the outer rings, so just take a pen and point a dot, draw a dot wherever you land. For this example, I drew my dot, 1, 2, in the third circle.
Well, we can see her face. Danielle, what are you doing? You're It almost looks like the woman knew that the cloud was there, and she's like peeking around it so that everyone can see her.
As you can see, I have a couple layers to go to reach my most confident self. So go ahead, take a moment, and play her dot. Now, here comes reprogramming. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to ask yourself this very simple question. Close your eyes, take a nice deep breath in, exhale, and on the exhale, I want you to ask yourself, what is it that you need to believe about yourself in order to get to the next ring? Take your time with this, breathe into it, meditate on it. What do you need to know about yourself? What do you need to believe about yourself in order to get to the next level? Some examples might be that I'm worthy, that I'm worth it, that people aren't going to judge me, that I have value, that I have something to add, that people need to hear my voice. Whatever that belief comes to you.
Whew, this is already so bad. Okay, again, this is not NLP. Yes, we work with beliefs. Yes, we say things like, what would you have to believe about yourself or XYZ. But one thing in NLP we know is true is you can't go at confidence directly. Confidence is built on competence. We don't want to try to jump to confidence, which is what a lot of personal development tries to do. They go like, well, just, we'll make you more confident. It's like, no, you need to build the competence, or you need to at least connect with your competence to be able to do this. But we're not trying to just jump into confidence. And then she also mentions about self-worth and value, and there is no such thing as self-worth. There's no way to measure anyone's value or your own value. Actually, what she's doing is making some presuppositions here that are actually rather destructive.
Make note of it. Once you have an answer to that question, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to float down into your body. I want you to feel yourself believing what it is you need to believe, right? So for example, let's say that in order to get to this ring, I need to believe that I have value. So I'm going to sit in that belief of having value. I'm going to close my eyes, bring that to my awareness, feel me having value. I'm going to float down into my body. I'm going to see what I see, hear what I hear, and I'm going to feel that feeling of being valuable, that belief I need. And once you feel it, go ahead and draw your dot on the next line. And now ask yourself, what do you need to believe about yourself in order to reach the next circle? Exactly the same thing, coming to awareness of it, closing your eyes, telling yourself, right, saying that affirmation out loud, then float down to your body, see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel.
In NLP, affirmations are not taught. That's not an NLP thing.
Feel yourself having that belief. This is going to be very powerful for you because not only are you bringing awareness to what is it that you need to be confident, but you're doing the subconscious reprogramming to get you there. If this was helpful,
This is not reprogramming, not in an NLP sense.
please go ahead and save this and let me know in the comments what you came up with.
Before Danielle says anything, it's TikTok NLP. What do you expect?
There's anything problematic necessarily with this technique that she taught?
I do. I think there is a lot problematic about what she was teaching there.
Again, my problem is that they frame it as this like absolutely life-altering opportunity that you need to take advantage of immediately. And I want to draw to attention
Danielle, it's a TikTok.
a comment that was left on this video. So this comment here says, I've been trying to manifest for 2 years. I've gone through the books, videos, podcasts, etc., but it feels like my ADHD is going against it. Like I find it hard to imagine a specific image in my head. And when I do feel like I'm getting somewhere in my head, my thoughts get confused. Is there a way to hypnotize the ADHD out of me or the symptoms that make manifesting difficult for me? I'm 30 and I feel like ADHD is holding me back. And then this coach just replied and said, you can definitely do it. So here's a whole other piece that I could talk about for a very long time. And this gets left in
Okay, I get this question a lot too. People come to me and say, can you hypnotize this out of me and stuff, silly things like that. And what I tell them is no. And if I could, I don't think I would. I think that would rob you of the journey and the process and the lessons you could learn by working your way through something.
my comments a lot is the idea that any of these practices where we're using manifestation, we're using, the principles of quantum
Nothing in NLP has anything to do with manifestation or quantum physics.
mechanics to achieve our dreams is
Quantum mechanics.
that when things don't work out the way that we have visualized or the way that we have been trying to manifest, it then becomes the fault of the person who is practicing as to why they're not getting the results that they want.
According to who? You've said this like 3 times already. Like, who in NLP is saying that? I mean, in a legitimate teacher, legitimate practitioner, you keep saying this. Yes, I'm sure that someone calling themselves an NLP teacher has said something like that. But that is not like baked into the methodology of NLP, the techniques or the technology or the model of NLP. There's nothing in there to back up what you're saying about we turn it around and make it the other person's fault.
And so I bring this up because in this specific video, she's talking about using visualization essentially to build confidence and in turn, I'm assuming, achieve the things that you desire in your life. Like if you don't feel confident, you can just visualize yourself feeling confident and then eventually you're going to feel confident. And if you don't achieve that sense of confidence, it's your fault for not visualizing.
Okay, if anyone thinks that you can just visualize stuff and suddenly you'll become confident, I would not buy into that at all. Competence creates confidence, and then sometimes people are competent, but they don't experience their own confidence. They're not confident about that, and that just tells me that I need to help them restructure their thoughts, restructure how their internal representation, so that they connect with their competence. And when they do that, they will feel confident about that. Confidence is about certainty.
Feeling confident, and then eventually you're going to feel confident. And if you don't achieve that sense of confidence, it's your fault for not visualizing correctly. And
Okay, I think I've said it enough times. The your fault thing. Like, I wish you could tell me, or wish you would tell me where you're referencing that from.
don't think that that's how confidence and building confidence actually works. Now,
And I just don't think that that's how NLP works, because it doesn't. It doesn't. Whoever you learn from is the kind of person you're talking about. Somebody who probably did 1 or 2 certifications and they claim that they know NLP. You went and learned from them and you got bamboozled, and that's what you're referencing.
Now, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychoprofessional, but it is my understanding that confidence stems from our experiences throughout life and a multitude of other complexities and issues that can really only appropriately be worked through with a professional in something like therapy, not with some...
No. Sometimes, yes, if the person has experienced like extreme trauma, but no, I have helped so many people gain confidence, but that wasn't even, like I said, you can't go at confidence directly. There are so many things that I want to say. Okay. No, I'm not going to go to that, because then I'm going to start teaching and I'm supposed to be reacting.
Some random stranger on the internet who bought some unaccredited certification program and is now calling themselves a hypnosis NLP practitioner coach extraordinaire.
By the way, hypnosis is scientifically backed. A good chunk of NLP is based on hypnosis. A good chunk of it is based on Gestalt therapy, which is an accepted therapy, but it's considered experimental, so they're not ready to say it's scientifically backed. Also, there's a CBT form of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, and it is so close to NLP, and it came after NLP, and specifically around what we call the meta model. The meta model is the first NLP model that was ever created. This therapy, it's ACT for short, has scientific empirical evidence to back it up, okay? It came after NLP. If NLP is fake or wrong, you would have to then say that hypnosis doesn't work and neither does ACT, which definitely works and is backed by science. And I've started looking into it a bit, and I was like, wow, like this is so close to the meta model and questions that we would ask in the meta model that if you were going to say that the meta model is a fake model, it's useless, it doesn't work, you're basically saying that ACT can't work either, and neither can hypnosis, and neither can Gestalt therapy. And a lot of the Satir family systems therapy, NLP was modeled off of that. People are still practicing that to this day. I don't know how scientifically backed it is or not.
And is now calling themselves a hypnosis NLP practitioner coach extraordinaire. I am all for using proven techniques and tools to help improve our lives. In fact, there are many great free tools here on YouTube that you can use, but the fact that these people package up these skills that they can then sell to you to teach you, or even worse, sell to you to then teach others to sell to others to teach others and so on, is where this whole thing starts to get very problematic for me. So hopefully I'm communicating that clearly. Let's get into video number 3.
You are.
This might be a little bit tricky to get your head around, so listen closely. Whatever problems you're facing, they're actually not real. You see, problems actually don't exist in the universe at large. They're just things that are happening, neutral events. And it's our perceptions of them, our understandings of them, that determine whether we see them as a problem or an opportunity or a challenge or anything in between.
She is right about this, and Danielle's gonna completely crap on this later. But that is true. So we are experiencing whatever our subjective reality is, and I'm assuming that is occurring in an objective reality, but there's still no way that we can know that for sure either, but likely so. The universe is going about its thing, doing its thing. When I say universe, I don't mean that in a woo-woo sense. I mean that in the planets, the Milky Way, all the galaxies, Earth, everything that's included. The universe isn't having a problem. It's just doing its thing. Now, we perceive problems, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, and I'm not saying, oh, we're all being just delusional. No, when we want something and we can't have it or we can't get it, then we call that a problem. And yeah, that's normal, and bad things happen and all of that. But really, problems don't exist in the universe as an objective truth. They exist in our minds as in our perceptions. This is true. And Danielle, you can't prove otherwise, I promise you. You can try. And again, if you ever want to debate, we can do that.
So take a minute and think about a problem that you have in your life right now that you're experiencing. And think, why do I feel like this is a bad thing? You might think, well, it's obviously bad, like I just lost this or whatever, but talk that through. Think about that to yourself. Is it that you've lost something? Therefore, your belief is that having lost that thing means that you're worse off. But actually frame it in a different way and think, well, actually, what have I gained as well?
And this is actually true. We don't really lose or gain anything. The idea of ownership over property is just an idea. It's just a concept, and it's agreed upon by many, many people, and we can even codify that into a government law. But the truth is, we don't really actually gain or lose anything. I don't know how else to really explain that right now without going off into, a big tangent, but we have all our sense of self with us, and we can't add to that, and we can't really take away from that. We're talking sense of self, how you perceive yourself, your self-concept, your identity. You can't really gain or lose anything. It feels that way. It definitely feels that way, but that can't actually happen. There's no physiological, objective, scientific way to look at that or say that actually happens. It does not. We are whatever entity we are, and there's no gaining or losing anything. Now, we can start projecting that out and saying, okay, well, I own this car, and then someone stole it. So I had a car, and then I lost it. But that was only based on an assumption that you owned it, and then the assumption of a group of people, a government, a country, whatever, a town, a city that makes the laws that says, yes, you own that thing. But without that, you don't own anything. You don't. And anarchists talk about this a lot, and it's true. Now, I'm not saying I want that. I'm just saying that that's the truth of how things are.
This video screams toxic positivity. Sometimes problems in our lives exist, and you know what? That's okay. It's part of the human experience.
She's taking this somewhere else. Like, of all the TikToks she showed, this woman had the closest thing that I can see. But we're talking about a TikTok, so she can't go off into the, it's so short, you can't really go off into the explanations that I'm going off on. Now, does she understand it that well, the woman who's making the TikTok? I don't know. But she actually is saying some things that are true. And then Danielle takes it in a different direction about, like, yes, when we are experiencing ourselves and our reality, yes, we have problems. And the woman in the TikTok is kind of leaning into this direction that, like, oh, you just got to, think positively about it. I don't agree with that. We do what we call reframing. And that is, okay, accept that there is a problem, or accept that you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Do you want to do something about it? And if that's a yes, then okay, let's start working on it. How can we turn this into a better situation than what you have right now? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't accept this. It's okay if you want to call it a problem. I use that word too. But when I'm faced with a problem, I can either just sit there and just dwell on it, or I can say, how do I get the best out of this? How do I accept what's happening and then turn it around the best that I can to get the best out of it? Doesn't mean I'm going to 100% resolve it, but I'm not okay to just sit there and not do anything about it. So yes, it's okay to feel these feelings, but I actually want to do something about it.
Yes, I believe that there are often lessons to be learned through the challenges that we face in our lives, but that doesn't negate the fact that it's okay to feel like things are hard when we face problems in our lives. And sometimes we do experience
So I don't really think that the woman on the TikTok was saying that it wasn't okay.
loss, and we have to feel through that loss. And it's okay for us to sit in those hard feelings and have the experience. Not everything that happens to us has to be twisted into a positive. Someone
No, I don't like the, oh, well, look at the bright side or look at the positive side. No, I don't think that that's the right way to go about it. But again, okay, this happened. Something, sucks. My wife left me or something like that. And yes, I'm going to accept the feeling, and I'm just going to go, okay, that happened. And then what do I do now? I'm just going to sit and and Danielle said it's okay if I just sit here and do nothing. No, you want to make this better. You want to say, what did I learn from this, and how do I do better next time? Find a better partner, someone who's more suited for me. What are you saying here? That you should just not do anything about it?
in the comments made like a pretty snide remark, but I thought it was kind of funny, so I figured I would read it here on the screen. Let's see. If I'm swimming in the ocean and a shark bites off one of my limbs, I should say to myself, this could actually be a good thing. And then the creator responded, but in the aftermath, when it seems like the world's against you, there's many ways you could see the experience in a way that serves you. Okay, sure. I'm sure that many of you that are watching this video have experienced significant loss, a significant challenge, significant failure.
Yeah, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. To Danielle's credit, I can't speak for the woman on the TikTok, but that's not the way that I would do it. But I also wouldn't just sit there and dwell on sadness and loss.
In your lifetime, and through that experience you were able to kind of draw some sort of positive conclusion or positive takeaway, but that does not mean the experience itself was a good thing that happened to you. And I think to have this perspective and to try and impose it on other people is very ignorant, comes from a place of privilege, and is really just in general quite insensitive to the human experience.
I think we can do two things at once. I think we can say, yes, this sucks, this hurts, this is a problem, and then say, I'm going to do my best to turn it around and make something better out of it. I don't see anything wrong with that.
So feel your feelings, my friends, and if you want to be sad or upset or angry or any kind of perceived negative emotion towards your human experience, know that it's totally okay.
A lot of what she is referring to, I think sounds to me like the law of attraction and The Secret, where people are so worried about lowering their vibration, which has never been shown to exist. I don't think there is such a thing as a vibration like that. A lot of these people are afraid that if I think negatively, or if I allow myself to feel my negative thoughts and feelings, that I'm going to lower my vibration, and that's going to manifest something I don't want. Danielle, that's law of attraction. That's the kind of manifestation you're talking about. That's The Secret. That is not NLP. And if you hear anyone saying that they're an NLP practitioner and they're talking and using terms like that, it's still not NLP. You can be a practitioner of something and, mix it up with all this other stuff. To me, NLP is a direct contradiction of law of attraction. And in some ways, not in all ways, you can always find a little bit of kernel of truth and about, everything. But NLP is a more practical approach, an everyday applicable approach. We do modeling, we do behavioral stuff, we take action. It's also, we want to align our thoughts to that. But the kind of stuff that you're being critical of sounds a lot more like law of attraction and The Secret, and you're conflating the two. And I'm kind of not surprised because, yes, there are people out there calling themselves NLP teachers and practitioners who conflate the two.
All this to say, it's my opinion, and the broad ideas that NLP is built upon and the lack.
You don't even know what the broad ideas of what NLP is built upon, obviously.
Of evidence to support its effectiveness really just have yet to emerge.
And these accredited coaching institutes do, and these business models do.
I would love to hear your thoughts, as always, in the comments. Do you agree with the things that I said? Are there things you thought I missed? Is there stuff that you disagree with? Have you heard of NLP before? Do you have experience using it or witnessing other people using it? Please let me know. If you enjoy anti-scam content, I have an entire...
I left you a comment, Danielle, and you didn't respond. And I emailed you, and that's when you responded. The whole idea of certification and people who don't really know NLP getting these certificates, yes, that's happening, and it's more of an annoyance to me than anything else. I wish that was not happening. At the same time, I have my reservations about trying to overregulate the NLP industry because I don't really want it to be a therapy. I want it to be a personal practice that people have and that it can be taught. At the same time, I can see the benefit of the regulation because it would clear up this nonsense. What you're talking about here is really, for the most part, not NLP. And that's why I reached out to you. All I wish is that you had just understood better what NLP is before criticizing it. And if all you had done is said, hey, I don't really know, I really don't feel like I can say what NLP is. But what I do know is that you have these people claiming to teach NLP, they're charging lots of money for it, and all they did was like a 2 or 3 day certification. I think this is a real problem, and it's a scam that's going on, and it catches attention because Tony Robbins does NLP. And so people think, oh, this person knows NLP. Well, then it must, I got to go spend that money. And and only 2 or 3 days. Oh, that's amazing. I can do that so fast. If you were criticizing that, or if you were criticizing, I guess, like the industry of it, you would have had my endorsement because yes, this is happening. Even some of the big teachers out there in the world who are actually teaching real NLP, but they're still certifying people just because they show up, or even when they don't show up. Yeah, that's a problem. People are going out there teaching. They're just regurgitating, they're just memorizing stuff and just talking about it. The most common compliment I get on my videos is that people, when they took an NLP course, they had to go to my videos to learn what their teachers were teaching them. When they would ask the teacher for clarification, the teacher couldn't clarify these things. And that just comes from someone who has memorized stuff, who has not actually experienced it, who has not actually made NLP work for them. I like that you're pointing out the scammy part of it. There are flaws in the industry, but you don't know what NLP is. That's the bottom line to this. You don't know what NLP is. And I wish you had looked into that a little bit more. If you're curious about what NLP actually is, I'd love to sit down and explain it to you. In conclusion, I don't think Danielle is a bad person. Don't go onto her YouTube channel and harass her about this. I think her intent is good and she makes some really good points. I just wish she had done better research, and instead of looking to TikTok for her sources, I wish she had looked at NLP content from real NLP authorities like the founders Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and some of the greats like my mentor Steve Andreas and his wife Connie Ray Andreas. As I mentioned, I did reach out to Danielle before making this video, and by the way, no need to send her this video. I will send it to her myself. I first offered to do a live stream where we could debate this issue, and if she didn't want to do that, I offered that we have a discussion about it either on a live stream or on a regular video. And if she didn't want to do either of those, I would make this reaction video. So here we are, which tells you what her response was. She had no interest in doing anything live nor debating me since, as she put it, she researches and scripts everything she does and was not comfortable speaking off the cuff about this topic. Now to address the issue that appears as though I'm punching down because I'm a much bigger channel. Danielle is quite successful as a YouTuber, and I must admit, I'm a bit envious of her success for having been on YouTube for such a short time. Her videos average about the same amount of views as mine do. The fact that I have more subscribers means very little. It really just means that I've been around for a lot longer. Again, I don't wish Danielle any ill will. I wish her great success. Making content on YouTube is challenging. Putting yourself out there is not easy, and I don't want to make it any harder on her. This is just my way of checking her for swerving into my lane and getting it wrong. The outcome I would like is that as she continues to make content, that she truly understands the topic before being critical of it. If you're watching this, Danielle, I'm not looking to be enemies, and I welcome your response. And one last thing, Danielle also did a part 2 to this video criticizing NLP. If you would like me to react to that one as well, please let me know in the comments below.